I'm a CEO. A 9-year-old homeless girl found my wallet lying in the gutter she hadn't eaten in 2 days, but when I offered her money, she refused and just asked if I could help her go to school. I broke down in tears right there on the sidewalk. Blood. That's what success tastes like at the top. Not the champagne they pour at galas, or the rare whiskey served in boardroom sits, the metallic tang of biting your tongue when investors demand more, the copper sting when you smile through a migraine after 18 hours without sleep. It's sacrificed dinners and missed birthdays and the slow hemorrhage of what makes you human. I never noticed the taste until that rainy Tuesday in April when a small hand reached out and forced me to remember. The quarterly board meeting had gone worse than expected. Catastrophic, actually. 3 grueling hours defending slipping profit margins, explaining supply chain disruptions, and reassuring increasingly nervous investors that our 5-year growth strategy remained sound, despite evidence to the contrary. For the first time in my 15-year tenure as CEO of Nexus Technologies, I'd watched doubt creep into our chairman's eyes. The kind of doubt that precedes phrases like exploring new leadership options and thanking you for your service. "The numbers don't lie, Michael," Warren had said afterward, his hand heavy on my shoulder, voice pitched low so others wouldn't hear. "Turn this around by the end of the quarter, or the board will be forced to consider alternatives." He'd smiled then, the empty gesture never reaching his eyes. No one's irreplaceable. I left the downtown high-rise with my head pounding, barely noticing the grey drizzle that had settled over Seattle like a shroud. The city mirrored my mood, cold, darkening, inhospitable. April in the Pacific Northwest, when winter should be loosening its grip but somehow never does. I had 4 missed calls from Carolinamy, wife of 12 years, and a calendar alert reminding me I'd promised to make it to Ethan's school play tonight. I'd already missed 2 this year. 7-year-olds don't understand market volatility or shareholder expectations. They just know when Dad's chair sits empty. Again, my jaw ached from clenching it through the meeting. I loosened my tie, feeling the familiar tightness in my chest, that vice-like pressure that had become my constant companion. Dr. Levinson had warned me about my blood pressure at my last physical. "Classic type A, executive profile," he'd said, not bothering to hide his disapproval. "You know where this road leads, Michael." I did know. My father had dropped dead at 54 in the middle of a conference call, massive coronary, phone still clutched in his hand. I was 48, racing toward the same finish line with the same single-minded determination. Knowing the destination didn't slow my pace. Around me, Seattle continued its hurried dance tech workers rushing between meetings, tourists huddled under umbrellas, street performers trying to catch attention and dollars. I was cutting through Westlake Park to grab a cab when it happened. Preoccupied with drafting a mental email to my VP of operations about potential layoffs, I didn't notice my wallet slip from my coat pocket as I reached for my phone. Mister, wait!" The voice was small but insistent. I kept walking, assuming it wasn't directed at me. In my world, people didn't call out "Mister." They said "Mr. Harrington," or "Sir," or, most commonly, nothing at all as they rushed to execute whatever directive I'd given. "Hey, Mister with the blue coat, you dropped something." I turned, irritation flaring another interruption in a day full of them. The quarterly projections were collapsing, my job was on the line, and my son's school play started in less than 2 hours. Whatever this was, it needed to be quick. That's when I saw her, a tiny figure darting between hurried commuters, one hand clutching a worn backpack strap, the other waving frantically. She dodged a businessman engrossed in his phone, sidestepped a barista carrying trays of coffee, determination written in every movement. The girl couldn't have been more than 9 years old. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, but several days without washing had left it dull and tangled. Her clothes, jeans, a faded purple hoodie, and scuffed sneakers were relatively clean but obviously worn, too thin for her frame. Everything about her suggested impermanence, that transient quality that makes comfortable people look away on city streets. "You dropped this," she said, slightly out of breath as she reached me. Her eyes startlingly alert and intelligent studied my face as she held out my wallet. The expensive leather one Caroline had given me for our anniversary, monogrammed with my initials. I didn't take anything from it. I patted my pocket, confirming it was indeed empty. The realization of what might have happened, what happens to countless others daily, in every major city settled over me. My entire life was in that wallet. Credit cards, ID, access card to the building, $340 in cash I'd withdrawn for the weekend. "Thank you," I said, genuinely surprised as I accepted it back. The wallet felt heavier somehow, weighted with an unexpected encounter that didn't fit the ruthless efficiency of my day. A quick check confirmed everything was there, nothing missing, nothing disturbed. The cynical part of my brain, the part shaped by 20 years of corporate politics and hard-earned lessons about human nature, immediately wondered about her angle. In my experience, people rarely did things without expecting something in return, especially in business, especially in a city where the divide between those with homes and those without grows wider each year. "That was very honest of you," I said, pulling out a $50 bill. It seemed an appropriate reward, generous enough to acknowledge the good deed, not so excessive as to seem ostentatious. "Here, take this." She took a step back, her chin lifting slightly. "No, thank you." That caught me off guard. I'd expected immediate acceptance, maybe even a request for more. The script I'd mentally prepared: benevolent businessman rewards good deed, everyone feels better, seen and suddenly needed revision. "It's fine," I insisted, extending the money further. "You did the right thing. This is a reward." She shook her head, raindrops flying from her ponytail. "I don't need a reward for not stealing." It was such a simple statement, delivered with such quiet dignity, that I found myself momentarily speechless. Here, on a rainy Tuesday, being lectured on ethics by a child who, by all visible evidence, had far less than I did. The irony wasn't lost on me. Just hours earlier, I'd been discussing potential creative accounting strategies with our CFO to make the quarterly numbers look better. I took a closer look at her face, the shadows under her eyes, the thinness of her cheeks. Despite this, there was something fiercely proud in her expression. She hadn't returned my wallet to get something in return. She'd done it because it was right. When was the last time I'd done something purely because it was right, with no calculation of benefit or return on investment? "Well, can I at least buy you some lunch as a thank you?" I offered, gesturing toward the cafe across the street. "It's starting to rain harder." She hesitated, glancing at the cafe, then back at me. The practical assessment of shelter versus stranger danger played across her features. I'm not supposed to go places with strangers. Smart kid. In her situation, that rule was even more important than for most children. "That's good advice," I agreed, feeling a surprising respect for this cautious, principled child. "My name's Michael Harrington. I run a company that makes software." I pulled out my business card from the wallet she'd just returned and handed it to her. Now I'm not a complete stranger. She studied the card carefully, running her finger over the embossed logo. "I'm Lily," she finally said. "Just Lily?" "Lily Taylor." She tucked the card into her pocket with careful deliberation. I guess lunch would be okay. The rain intensified as we crossed the street to Westlake Cafe, a trendy spot where business deals were made over $15 avocado toast and artisanal coffee. I watched heads turn as we entered, me in my tailored suit and overcoat, Lily in her worn hoodie and jeans. The hostess's smile faltered slightly as she assessed my companion, but professionalism quickly reasserted itself. "Table for two, please," I said, daring her with my expression to make a comment, preferably somewhere quiet. She led us to a corner table by the window, slightly removed from the business lunch crowd. I gestured for Lily to sit, noting how she perched on the edge of the chair, as if prepared to flee at any moment. Her eyes darted around, taking in everything: the expensive light fixtures, the carefully curated art on the walls, the well-dressed patrons tapping on laptops and tablets. "Have whatever you want," I said, handing her a menu. "I recommend the grilled cheese if you like that sort of thing. They use 3 different kinds of cheese here." She accepted the menu with a cautious nod, studying it with the same intensity she'd shown my business card. I noticed her mouthing some of the words aioli, reduction, confit, the unnecessarily complicated language restaurants use to justify charging $25 for a sandwich. "What's arugula?" she asked, attempting the pronunciation. "Arugula," I corrected gently. "It's a kind of spicy lettuce." She wrinkled her nose. "Why not just say lettuce then?" I laughed, genuinely laughed for what felt like the first time in weeks. "Good question. I suppose because they can charge more if it sounds fancy. The waitress approached, tablet in hand. Are we ready to order? I nodded to Lily. She straightened in her chair. May I please have the grilled cheese sandwich, tomato soup, and a hot chocolate? Her voice was clear and polite, but I caught the slight tremble in it, the effort it took to appear composed in this unfamiliar environment. Excellent choices, the waitress said warmly, then turned to me. And for you, sir? Just coffee. Black, I replied. My appetite had disappeared somewhere between the board meeting and this unexpected encounter. As the waitress walked away, I noticed Lily looking around at the other tables, at the untouched bread baskets and half-eaten meals, the careful inventory of someone who knows what it means to go without. When did you last eat, Lily? I asked carefully. She shrugged, a deliberate casualness that didn't match the way her eyes had lingered on the bread basket the waitress had just placed on our table. Yesterday morning. The shelter was full last night, and we... She stopped abruptly, as if realizing she'd said too much. We? I prompted. Her fingers played with the corner of her napkin, folding and unfolding it with nervous energy. My mum and me, she said, eyes down. She's sick. We've been staying different places since we lost our apartment. The admission hung between us, stark and uncomfortable. I thought about my 5-bedroom home in Madison Park, the vacation property on the San Juan Islands, the housekeeper who came 3 times a week. The contrast was obscene. Where is she now? At the library where it's warm. She doesn't know I'm here. I was supposed to stay with her, but then I saw your wallet and... She trailed off, taking a piece of bread from the basket. I noticed how she broke it into small pieces, eating slowly, making it last. The restraint told me everything. This was someone accustomed to making food stretch, to not knowing when the next meal would come. The hot chocolate arrived first, topped with whipped cream and chocolate shavings. Lily's eyes widened, but she didn't reach for it immediately. Go ahead, I encouraged. It's yours. She wrapped her hands around the mug, seeming to savor the warmth as much as the prospect of the drink itself. She took a careful sip, leaving a small whipped cream mustache that she quickly wiped away. Thank you, she said with such genuine gratitude that I felt a strange discomfort, an emotion I eventually recognized as shame. When had I last felt genuinely thankful for something as simple as a warm drink? The waitress returned with her grilled cheese and soup, setting them down with a cheerful, "Enjoy!" Lily stared at the food, a golden brown sandwich cut diagonally, revealing layers of melted cheese, alongside a steaming bowl of bright red soup sprinkled with fresh basil. I expected her to dive in ravenously. She'd admitted to not eating since yesterday morning, after all. Instead, she carefully arranged her napkin in her lap, picked up her spoon, and began eating with deliberate slowness. Each spoonful of soup was measured, each bite of sandwich small and controlled. It's really good, she offered after a few bites. Thank you, Mr. Harrington. You can call me Michael, I said, surprising myself. I couldn't remember the last time I'd invited someone to use my first name in an initial meeting. Even new executives at my company addressed me as Mr. Harrington, until explicitly told otherwise. She considered this, then shook her head slightly. My mum says it's respectful to use last names with adults I don't know well. I felt a smile tug at my lips. Your mum sounds like she has good values. Lily nodded emphatically. She's the best. She reads to me every night, even now. We're halfway through The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. She does all the different voices. A shadow crossed her face. But she's been really tired lately. Sometimes she falls asleep before we finish a chapter. I thought about my own nighttime routine with Ethan, how often I texted Caroline that I'd be late, how rarely I made it home for bedtime stories anymore, the steady erosion of what I'd once considered non-negotiable family time. Lily, why didn't you take the $50 I offered? It could have helped you and your mum. The question had been nagging at me since she'd refused. In her situation, most people would have accepted without hesitation. She looked up at me, her expression serious beyond her years. My mum says we're not beggars. She says we're just having a hard time right now, but we still have our dignity. She took another bite of her sandwich, chewing thoughtfully. And what? And I don't need money. What I really want... She set down her spoon, her eyes meeting mine directly. What I really need is to go back to school. The simplicity of her request hit me with unexpected force. You're not in school? I asked, though the answer was obvious. It was Tuesday, just past 1 p.m. Any child her age should have been in a classroom. She shook her head, a flash of pain crossing her features before she carefully composed them again. I haven't been since we lost our place. Mom keeps saying we'll get settled soon and I can go back. But it's been almost 3 months now. 3 months. An entire season of childhood spent in limbo. No classroom, no friends, no structure or learning, just survival. I miss math class the most, she continued, using her last piece of bread to soak up the remaining soup. And the library. Our school had this awesome librarian, Ms. Chen. She always saved the new marine biology books for me because she knew I want to be a marine biologist when I grow up. Not money, not toys, not even a consistent place to stay. School, education, a future. That's what this child wanted more than anything else. Something broke open inside me, Dam, I hadn't even realized I'd constructed. Years of compartmentalization, of separating my humanity from my professional identity, of telling myself that ruthlessness was necessary for success, it all seemed to crack along a fault line I couldn't see but suddenly could feel. I felt hot tears well up in my eyes right there in the middle of the crowded cafe, shocking myself as much as the child sitting across from me. I turned away quickly, fumbling for my napkin, but not before she'd seen. "Are you okay, Mr. Harrington?" she asked, concerned. The genuine worry in her voice only intensified the emotion climbing up my throat. I cleared my throat, struggling to regain composure. What was happening to me? I hadn't cried in public since, well, I couldn't remember the last time. Certainly not since taking the helm at Nexus. "Yes, I'm fine," I managed to say. "Just, you remind me of something important I've forgotten." Lily looked confused but nodded politely. She was used to adults not making sense, I imagined. "What grade are you in?" I asked, desperate to change the subject while I reconstructed my composure. "Third, or I was. I guess I still am, just not going right now." She frowned. "I'm probably behind on everything. Tyler Henderson is probably answering all the questions in class now." The competitive edge in her voice made me smile. "I bet you'll catch up quickly when you go back," I said. "If I go back," she corrected, a flash of adult wariness beyond her years. We sat in silence for a moment, the sounds of the cafe clinking dishes, snippets of business conversations, the hiss of the espresso machine creating a cocoon around our table. My phone vibrated. Another email from Warren. Subject line, "Urgent. Immediate action required." I ignored it. Watching Lily finish her meal, I felt a clarity I hadn't experienced in years. The relentless pressure of quarterly profits, market share battles, and succession planning suddenly seemed distant, like problems belonging to someone else. Here was a real problema, bright child, deprived of education because of circumstances beyond her control. A mother trying to maintain dignity while her world collapsed. Systems that should have prevented this situation, failing spectacularly. "Lily," I said, my voice steadier now, "I think I might be able to help you go back to school. But first, I'd like to meet your mum." Hope flashed across her face before caution quickly tamped it down. "Why?" "Because if you're a minora child," I corrected when she looked confused, "I can't help you without your parents' permission, and because it sounds like your mum could use some help too." She studied me with that same intensity she'd shown earlier, weighing trustworthiness against potential risk. "You're not from social services, are you? Because last time they came, they said they might have to separate us if Mom couldn't find stable housing soon." The matter-of-fact way she described this threat to her family unit made my stomach clench. "No, I'm not from social services. I'm just someone who wants to help if your mum will let me." After another moment of consideration, she nodded. "Okay, we can go to the library, but if my mum doesn't want to talk to you, you have to leave us alone. Promise?" "I promise," I said solemnly. Lily nodded, satisfied with the agreement. She took a final sip of her hot chocolate, then carefully wiped her mouth with her napkin. As she gathered her backpack, I signaled for the check. "1 second," I told her, then approached the counter. After paying for our meal, I added another order: a turkey sandwich, side salad, and tea to go. Lily might have refused money, but I doubted her mother would refuse food, especially if her daughter had been hungry. Outside, the rain had lightened to a fine mist. Lily walked slightly ahead of me, navigating the busy downtown streets with the confidence of someone who had learned to move through the world without being noticed. She didn't walk like other children, her Egino skipping, no spontaneous stops to look at interesting things in shop windows. Her movements were purposeful, economical. "It's not far," she said over her shoulder. "Mom likes the central library because it has 12 floors and lots of places to sit without being bothered, and clean bathrooms." The practical assessment of public spaces as shelter knowledge no child should need to have. As we walked, I found myself noticing things I usually hurried past. The carefully arranged belongings of a man sleeping in a doorway, the row of tents tucked under a highway overpass, the signs asking for help or work, or just acknowledgement. How long had this parallel reality existed alongside mine, just outside my field of vision? "Mr. Harrington?" Lily's voice pulled me from my thoughts. "Yes? Why did you start crying back there?" The directness of childhood, unfiltered by adult politeness. I considered deflecting, giving some sanitized response. Instead, I found myself answering honestly, because I realized I've been focusing on the wrong things. "I have a son about your age, and I've been missing a lot of his life because I thought my work was more important." She processed this. "Is your work important?" "I used to think so. Now I'm not so sure." The admission felt both terrifying and liberating. "What does your company do?" she asked. "We make software that helps other businesses be more efficient." The explanation sounded hollow even to my own ears. How many times had I delivered passionate speeches about our mission, our vision, our revolutionary approach to enterprise solutions? Now, it all seemed like elaborate justification for the pursuit of profit at any cost. "Do you like it?" Another simple question that struck at something profound. When had anyone last asked if I liked my work? Performance reviews discussed achievements and areas for improvement. Board meetings focused on growth metrics and market positioning. Interviews explored strategic vision and leadership philosophy. But enjoyment? Fulfillment? These had fallen out of the equation years ago. "I used to," I said finally. "Very much." Lily nodded, accepting this without judgment. "My mum used to like her job too. She was an accountant. She said she liked how the numbers always balanced in the end, even when things seemed messy at first." An accountant. Not what I'd expected to hear. How quickly circumstances could change for anyone, even professionals with stable careers. "What happened with her job?" I asked carefully. Lily's face clouded. "She got sick. Had to go to the hospital for a while. Then, when she got better, her job was gone. That's when we lost our apartment. She kicked a pebble on the sidewalk. She fills out applications every day at the library. Sometimes she gets interviews, but then they don't call back." The casual way she described this catastrophic chain of events struck me deeply. The precariousness of stability in a country where illness could erase a lifetime of work within months. How many of my own employees were one medical crisis away from similar circumstances? We were approaching the Seattle Public Library's central branker distinctive angular glass and steel structure that dominated the block. The architectural showpiece had won numerous design awards when it opened. Its dramatic forms meant to reimagine what a library could be in the 21st century. Now I wondered how many people inside were there not for books, but for shelter from the elements. Mum usually sits on the 8th floor. Lily explained as we approached the entrance. "It's quieter there, and there's this corner with big chairs where she can apply for jobs on her phone without being disturbed." The calculated knowledge of where to exist without drawing attention, another skill set no child should need to develop. "Lily," I said, stopping just outside the entrance, "before we go in, I want you to know something. Whatever happens in there, whether your mum wants my help or not, I'm proud of what you did today. Returning my wallet was the right thing, but it wasn't the easy thing. That says a lot about who you are." She looked up at me, surprise flickering across her features. Then a small, genuine smile, the first I'd seen from her. "My mum says character is what you do when no one is watching." "Your mum sounds very wise," I said, feeling a renewed determination to meet this woman who had instilled such principles in her daughter despite their circumstances. As we passed through the library's automated doors, I found myself in a soaring atrium that stretched the full height of the building. All around us, people moved with purpose, students with backpacks, professionals with laptops, tourists with cameras, and interspersed among them, less visible but present if you knew how to look, people with nowhere else to go, using the library as a temporary haven. Lily led me toward the elevators, her stride becoming more confident now that we were in familiar territory. She pressed the button for the 8th floor, then turned to me. "My mum might be mad that I brought you," she warned. "She doesn't like asking for help." "I understand," I said. "I'm the same way." The elevator doors opened, revealing a spacious floor filled with rows of books, reading areas, and computer stations. Lily scanned the space with practiced efficiency, then pointed toward a far corner where several armchairs were arranged around a low table. "There she is," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. I followed her gaze to see a woman bent over a notebook, her dark hair the same shade as Lily's cut, in a practical bob that fell just below her chin. She wore layers, a button-up shirt under a sweater, a denim jacket over that, the practical approach of someone who carried their wardrobe with them. A small duffel bag was tucked protectively between her feet. As we approached, I saw her shoulders tense, mother's intuition perhaps sensing her child's return before actually seeing her. She looked up, and I saw the same expressive dark eyes as Lily's, though hers held a wariness that her daughter's hadn't yet developed. When she registered that Lily wasn't alone, alarm flashed across her face. She stood quickly, wincing slightly as she did, one hand automatically reaching for the duffel bag. "Lily, where did you—" She stopped, eyes darting between her daughter and me, assessing potential threat. "Mum, it's okay," Lily hurried to explain, crossing the remaining distance between them. "This is Mr. Harrington. I found his wallet and returned it, and he bought me lunch, and he wants to help us." The woman's expression shifted relief that her daughter was safe, confusion about my presence, and a flicker of something that might have been embarrassment, or pride, or both. "I appreciate the lunch," she said carefully, her voice low enough not to disturb others nearby. "But we don't need charity." I'd expected this response. It was the exact one I would have given in her position. Pride is often the last possession people refuse to relinquish. "Miss Taylor," I said, matching her quiet tone, "I'm not offering charity. I'm Michael Harrington." I extended my hand, which she shook after a moment's hesitation. Her grip was firm despite her obvious fatigue. "Your daughter did something today that made me rethink some priorities, and I'd like to talk with you about how I might help Lily get back into school." At the mention of school, her expression softened fractionally. I'd found the right approach, not pity, but partnership in helping her child. "We can talk," she conceded, gesturing to the nearby chairs. "Lily, why don't you go check out that book you were telling me about? The one about dolphins?" Lily looked between us, clearly reluctant to leave. "It's okay," her mother assured her. "Just for a few minutes. Stay on this floor where I can see you." After Lily walked away, the woman's composed facade cracked slightly. She ran a hand through her hair, a gesture of exhaustion more than vanity. "Thank you for the food you bought her," she said quietly. "I know she must have been hungry." I reached into the bag I was carrying. "I brought something for you too." She stiffened. "I didn't ask." "You didn't," I agreed, setting the bag on the table between us. "But everyone needs to eat." She stared at the bag for a long moment, then nodded one tight, economical gesture of acceptance. "Thank you." She didn't open it, choosing instead to meet my gaze directly. "Now, why are you really here, Mr. Harrington? Because if you're expecting gratitude for basic human decency, you've come to the wrong place." The bluntness caught me off guard, though it shouldn't have. This wasn't a woman with energy to waste on social niceties. "I'm here because your daughter refused to take money from me, even though she was hungry. Because when I asked what she wanted instead, all she said was that she wanted to go back to school. That's not what most adults would prioritize, let alone children." Something in her expression shifted pride, momentarily overriding caution. "Lily has always valued education, even before all this." She gestured vaguely, encompassing their current circumstances. "She mentioned you've been out of permanent housing for about 3 months?" I kept my tone neutral, informational rather than judgmental. She nodded, her guard visibly rising again. What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Harrington? Because if this is some feel-good moment where you throw money at a problem to ease your conscience before returning to your comfortable life, I'm not interested. The assessment was uncomfortably accurate. Wasn't that exactly what I'd initially intended? A convenient transaction to make myself feel better? Actually, I said slowly, I'm not entirely sure what I'm proposing yet, but I know it starts with listening. Would you tell me more about your situation and what obstacles are preventing Lily from returning to school? She studied me for a long moment, weighing sincerity against potential exploitation. Finally, she sighed a sound, containing months of exhaustion. My name is Beth Taylor. I was an accountant at Meridian Construction for 6 years. Good salary, good benefits. We had a nice 2-bedroom apartment in Ravenna. Lily was at Thornton Elementary Gifted Program, straight as. Her voice held no self-pity, just a factual recounting of what had been. Then last October, I started getting these headaches. Vision problems. Thought it was just stress or needed new glasses. She paused, her fingers unconsciously touching her temple. Turned out to be a non-malignant brain tumor. She said this matter-of-factly, as if discussing a minor inconvenience rather than a life-altering diagnosis. I needed surgery. Recovery took longer than expected. Meridian held my job as long as they legally had to, but eventually. She shrugged. The medical bills piled up. Even with insurance, the out-of-pocket maximums, the specialists, the medications. I burned through my savings, then started missing rent payments. You can figure out the rest. The casual way she described this catastrophic chain of events struck me deeply. How quickly stability could vanish even for someone who'd done everything right. Are you still receiving treatment? I asked. Follow-up appointments when I can make them. The tumor's gone, but there are some lingering effects. Headaches, some coordination issues? She admitted. Nothing that prevents me from working, but finding a job without a permanent address, looking like this. She gestured to her worn clothes. It's been challenging. I thought about the luxury of my own problems board pressure. Market fluctuations compared to what this woman was facing. And Lily's schooling? Beth's expression darkened. We've been to the social services office 3 times. Without a permanent address, the enrollment process is. She trailed off, frustration evident. They say she's entitled to continue her education regardless of housing status, something called the McKinney-Vento Act, but the practical reality is more complicated. Transportation issues, residency verification, required documentation that was left behind when we were evicted. Her voice broke slightly on the last word, the first crack in her composed demeanor. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. We're on waiting lists for transitional housing, but the system is overwhelmed. I'm trying to find work, but without stable childcare or housing, it's a cycle. You need one to get the other, but can't get either without both. I nodded, hearing the impossible math in her situation. The systemic failures that trapped people despite their best efforts. I might be able to help navigate the school enrollment process, I said. I serve on several city committees and know people in the school district administration. This wasn't just a platitude, I did have these connections, though I'd primarily use them for networking rather than substantive change. How easy it would be to make one phone call, pull one string, and remove at least one obstacle for this family. Beth tilted her head, reassessing me. And what would you want in return, Mr. Harrington? The question was delivered without hostility, just pragmatic wariness. In her experience, help always came with conditions. Nothing, I said simply. Your daughter showed extraordinary character today. I'd like to honor that by helping you both find solid ground again. She didn't look convinced. In my experience, people with power and resources don't intervene in situations like ours without expecting something in return. Publicity, tax write-offs, the warm feeling of Christian charity. Her tone turned slightly bitter on the last phrase. I understand your skepticism, I said, but I assure you, this isn't for publicity or tax benefits. In fact, I'd prefer if this arrangement remained confidential. She raised an eyebrow, waiting for further explanation. How could I explain what I barely understood myself? That Lily's simple act of integrity had triggered something in me, a recognition of how far I'd drifted from my own core values. That seeing her prioritize education over immediate relief had made me question every decision I'd made in the past decade? Miss Taylor, I said finally. I run a technology company that employs over 5,000 people. I make decisions every day that affect livelihoods, market positions, stock prices. I've become very good at seeing people and situations as numbers on a spreadsheet. I paused, surprised by my own candor. Your daughter made me see something differently today. I'd like to help, if you'll let me. Beth studied me for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she glanced across the floor to where Lily stood examining a book, her face alight with the pure joy of discovery despite everything she'd endured. What exactly are you offering? She asked, turning back to me. First, help getting Lily re-enrolled in school, immediately either her previous school or one closer to wherever you're staying now. I can make those calls today, I thought quickly, assessing what else I could realistically provide. Second, I'd like to help you find stable housing. Not a hand-out, a legitimate arrangement with clear terms and expectations. Beth's posture stiffened. We're not looking for someone to rescue us, Mr. Harrington. We've applied for every assistance program available. We're on waiting lists. I understand, I said quickly. I'm not suggesting charity. My company's foundation owns several residential properties throughout the city as part of our community investment portfolio. This wasn't entirely accurate. Nexus had a foundation that primarily focused on promoting STEM education in underserved communities, but we didn't currently own residential properties. However, I personally owned several investment properties that stood empty between tenants. We could arrange a reduced rent situation while you get back on your feet professionally. Her eyes narrowed slightly. And this foundation of yours routinely offers housing to random people you meet on the street. The skepticism was justified. Nothing about this proposal followed standard protocol. No, I admitted. Usually there's an application process, committee review, the whole bureaucratic dance. But as CEO, I have some discretionary authority. She didn't look convinced. And what happens when your board or shareholders or whoever question why you're using company resources for a personal project? I leaned forward slightly. Ms. Taylor, I understand your concern, but you should know that I'm perfectly capable of navigating corporate politics. The foundation exists to do good in the community. This falls squarely within that mission. She nodded, though not in agreement, simply acknowledging my response. Her fingers tapped rhythmically against her near nervous habit, or perhaps a lingering effect of her medical issues. And if I were to consider this offer, she said carefully, what would be expected of me? A reasonable portion of your income once you secure employment would go toward rent substantially below market rate. Participation in the Foundation's financial literacy program. I was creating this program as I spoke, but I could make it real with a few calls. And a commitment to maintaining the property, of course. And the catch? She pressed, still searching for the hidden agenda. No catch, just a bridge to help you and Lily get back to stability, and a recognition that the current system makes that nearly impossible without intervention. Beth looked away, her profile sharp against the library window. Outside, Seattle continued its afternoon choreography people rushing between appointments, never noticing how thin the line was between their ordered lives and complete upheaval. Why? She asked finally, turning back to me. Why us? There are thousands of people in similar situations in this city alone. What makes Lily and me special? The question cuts to the heart of the matter. Why them indeed? What made their circumstance more deserving of intervention than countless others? Nothing, in truth. Just the chance encounter of a lost wallet and a child's integrity intersecting with my own moment of crisis. Honestly, I said, because Lily found my wallet, because she returned it without taking anything, despite being hungry, because when offered money, she asked for education instead. I met Beth's gaze directly, and because I've spent too many years making decisions based solely on profit margins and growth projections, today, I'm making one based on what's right. Beth didn't respond immediately. Her gaze drifted to her daughter, who was now sitting cross-legged on the floor, absorbed in what appeared to be a book about marine life. She wants to be a marine biologist, Beth said softly. Has since she was 5. Every science project, every library visit, every nature documentary always about oceans. She can name more species of whales than I knew existed. A small, sad smile tugged at her lips. 2 weeks ago, she asked if we could still go see the aquarium for her birthday next month, like we'd planned before. Everything. as if that was her biggest concern. The quiet pride in Beth's voice made my throat tighten. "She's extraordinary," I said simply. "Yes." Beth's voice grew firmer. "She is, which is why I need to be absolutely certain about anything that affects her future." She turned back to me, her expression resolute. "I need to see this apartment. I need everything in writing terms, expectations, duration, all of it. I need to know exactly what strings are attached, because in my experience, there are always strings." "Of course," I agreed immediately. "Would tomorrow work? I could pick you both up, show you the property, have the paperwork ready for review?" Beth hesitated, then gave a short nod. "Tomorrow morning. But Mr. Harrington." "Yes?" "If this is some kind of tax write-off or publicity stunt for your company, or if you have any motivation beyond what you've stated, please tell me now." Her gaze was unwavering. "I've had enough disappointments. I won't set Lily up for another one." The directness of her question deserved equal honesty. 6 months ago, it might have been partly true, I admitted. I've become someone I'm not particularly proud of lately. But right now, this is about doing something that matters. I paused, then added, and if I'm being completely honest, it's also about reminding myself that I can still be that person. Something in my admission seemed to resonate with her. The wariness in her expression didn't disappear, but it softened slightly. "Tomorrow at 10, she said. "We'll meet you outside the library." "I'll be here," I promised, then glanced at my watch. The realization hit me with sudden force. Ethan's play started in 40 minutes. Across town during rush hour. "I need to go," I said, standing quickly. "My son's school performance, I promised I'd be there." Beth nodded, a flash of understanding passing between us parent to parent. "Don't miss it," she said simply. The weight of those 3 words from someone who'd lost so much, but still recognized what truly mattered settled deep in my chest. "Thank you," I said, meaning it for reasons she couldn't fully understand. "I'll see you tomorrow." I stopped by where Lily sat with her book. "I have to go now, but I'll see you and your mum tomorrow, okay? We're going to figure out how to get you back to school." She looked up, her eyes wide. "Really?" "Really," I confirmed. "And thank you again for returning my wallet. It was the right thing to do." She smiled a genuine, unguarded child's smile that transformed her face. My mum always says doing the right thing matters most when it's hardest. I glanced at Beth, who watched us from her chair. "Your mum is very wise." Outside, the rain had stopped entirely, the late afternoon sun breaking through clouds in slanted golden beams. I hailed a cab and checked my phone as I wait. 7 emails marked urgent, 3 voicemails from the board chair, and another missed call from Caroline. I put the phone away without responding to any of them. For the first time in years, I felt something shift inside me, priorities realigning, values resurfacing that had been buried under quarterly projections and shareholder expectations. As the cab pulled away, I glanced back to see Lily approaching her mother, book in hand, animatedly describing something from its pages. Despite everything weighing on her, Beth was giving her daughter her complete attention present, in a way I had forgotten how to be. The board could wait. The emails could wait. Everything could wait. Tonight, I would watch my son perform in his school play. Tomorrow, I would help a homeless little girl go back to school. And somewhere in between, I would begin the process of remembering what actually mattered. If this story touched you, please hit that subscribe button, share it with someone who needs this reminder about what truly matters, and leave a comment below with your thoughts. Your support helps stories like this reach those who need them most.